Good morning to all of you. I'm Ajay Goyal. I work with Vadhwani Foundation. Thank you for joining in for this webinar, uh, especially all the industry representatives and the heads of various state heads of CII who are present in this webinar. And it would be my pleasure to walk you through some of the basic concepts of community colleges, uh, the way MHRD in India is planning to roll it out, and the scheme and how they're planning to roll it out, and how industry could really partner with the proposed community colleges, which is one of the keys, or rather the major key to success for the community colleges. So the title of today's presentation is Community Colleges, an Opportunity Waiting to be Capitalized. And I would encourage you to ask questions, as many questions as you want in the chat box. While I would answer some of them while the presentation is on, others I would take it at the end of the presentation based on the kind of question. And probably 45 minutes of presentation followed by whatever time it takes to answer your question, about another half an hour, 45 minutes. So let's move ahead, and a brief introduction to Vadhwani Foundation. The focus of Vadhwani Foundation is to accelerate economic development in emerging economies and enabling creation of jobs for millions. So we have 5 specific initiatives on which we work on. Each of them we call as where we try to network various individuals, stakeholders in terms of achieving the objectives of the foundation and that initiative. We are primarily working in India and US, and one of the initiatives we have started exploring to take it to a couple of our neighboring countries, but that's really a very, very small start. It's primarily India and some work which we are doing in US. The foundation is promoted by a person called Dr. Romesh Vadhwani, a non-resident Indian who had gone to US about 40 years ago after completing his graduation from IIT Bombay, and he opted to start his own company, and he has now pledged 80% of his wealth to philanthropic work, and this foundation is a part of that initiative from him to give back to society 80% of the wealth which is created across the different countries, especially in India and US. So the 5 initiatives of Vadhwani Foundation, one is on National Entrepreneurship Network, where the focus is on creating large-scale jobs through entrepreneurship development in colleges and technical institutes, where we work with over 400 institutes to train students on entrepreneurship. Every year we touch about 500,000 students, and a deeper engagement with about 100,000 students. The second initiative, and that's the oldest initiative, which we had launched about 11 years ago, called NEN. The second initiative was on skills development, where we want to work in terms of accelerating employability through skill development. There are 4 specific projects which we are working on. One is schools, vocational education schools in India, where we work closely with some state governments to manage their programs. Second is on community colleges in India. Third is on creating MOOCs, massively online courses, massively online open courses for jobs, which we started working on 5 or 6 months ago. I'll speak about it a little more later. The fourth area is we are working with the community colleges in US as well, because they also have issues of employability, but in a very, very different context and in US. The third initiative is on empowering the educated disabled by getting them to corporate jobs. The fourth one is on research and innovation and promoting it. We have helped set up a couple of research centers, one in IIT Bombay for biotechnology and one in NCRB Bangalore for biosciences, and specifically in the area of stem cell research in neurology and cardiology. The fifth area is on policy impact. How do we really impact the 4 initiatives through working with the governments in India and US by also enabling or influencing policy changes in this area for a large-scale impact. So now let's come to the community colleges. And I'll start with a little background as to what's been happening over the last couple of years. Actually, all of you know, the whole area of vocational education had found a place in 1986 in the National Policy on Education, where the government had put in their intention and intent to start vocational education from schools. But somehow that whole initiative has started taking shape more lately, especially when people started talking about demographic dividend, etc. And community colleges is a concept which we thought as Vadhvani Foundation, this is something which is a large gap after 12th standard, where most of the graduates either they drop out of the education system or get into the typical rut of BA, BSc, BCom, 3-year education, which doesn't really provide or employability skills. Probably about 15 to 20% of the graduates are employable. That's a well-known statistics we have been hearing for many years. So we thought that why don't we bring in the concept of community colleges or further education colleges as they are called in UK into India, which are shorter programs, completely employability focused, with close association with the employers and industry. So we had engaged with the then HRD minister about little over 2.5 years ago, and taken him and shown him around some community colleges in US. After a few months, he set up a conference, a team or committee of state education ministers from 10 or 11 states to study this. This committee went to US in April last year and submitted a report after that on concept and framework of the community college scheme. So Vadhvani Foundation and MHRD had taken them in April to US last year, 2012. Now this report which this committee of state education ministers presented in June 2012 to the Honorable Minister became the background to the whole idea of starting community colleges in India. And MHRD decided to start target 200 community colleges starting sometime in 2013, which would be embedded in the existing colleges of polytechnics, which would be selected by the state governments. And since August 2012 till about April this year, MHRD along with Vadhvani Foundation, we held a number of sensitization seminars at national level in Delhi, couple of them, and at 6-7 regional seminars in places like Lucknow, Mumbai, Guwahati, Bangalore, etc. To engage and build up momentum towards this with the state government officials, some of the industry people in these cities, these areas. One more key thing which came out last year was government's notification or executive order by MHRD around the National Vocational Education Qualification Framework, which is also referred in short as NVEQF. I'm not sure how many of you know about NVEQF. I do have a couple of slides as a reference slides in case some of you want me to spend 5-7 minutes on NVEQF. Please do put in a note in the chat box so that I would know whether you're interested to get a little overview of what is NVEQF. I would then be pleased to do that towards the end of the presentation. So in case you want to understand, get an overview, do put in yes to this on the chat box now. Also UGC last year wrote to all their universities, all the VCs, announcing a 4th bachelor's degree apart from the generic degrees of arts, science and commerce, saying that UGC will start promoting the bachelor's of vocational studies, which again gave fillip to this whole scheme, because the whole area of vocational education has to get mainstreamed and integrated with the higher education system. That's extremely essential. One of the vehicles is community colleges, and second also is that many of the existing courses in BA, BSc, BCom could be made more vocational oriented or employability oriented, as Delhi University has just recently announced their 4-year undergraduate program with exits at year 2, year 3 and year 4. In February 2013, an international conference on community colleges was organized by MHRD or about 60 people from abroad, and another about 450 people from all over the states and industry in India participated in that. Again, idea was to expose our, especially the implementers in the government system as well as the industry officials, to understand and get exposed to the way community colleges run in US. And some of the key takeaways from this conference for almost all the participants was that community colleges cannot run without industry participation. That's a bedrock foundation to community colleges. Otherwise, they'll become yet another academic college. And these have to really work hand in hand, concurrently, right from the designing of the curriculum to managing the community college through the board of management, to providing guest faculty or practitioners as teachers, faculty there, involved in the assessment, internship, guest lectures, and finally the placement, because the ultimate beneficiary is going to be the industry here. So that came out as one very, very key thing. Of course, flexibility, multiple exit points, the whole issue of help enabling students to go through short programs, let's say of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, exit, start working, and then keep on accumulating credits. We'll talk more about it. Came out quite clearly during the community college conference in February 2013. So what are the objectives of the community college? The first key objective is, of course, it's not in order of priority, but is bridging the skill gap of what the industry needs and what our education system provides. So making sure that in the community colleges we provide those skills with some adequate academic inputs as well, which the industry needs, so that the students become employable immediately. So the focus would be on job role specific courses or curriculum in whichever industry one is talking about, whether it's automobile, whether it's healthcare, whether it's retail, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's banking, finance and insurance, and so on and so forth. The second is to increase employability, including the self-employability or entrepreneurship, so that the students are more employable. So it's not just the hardcore skills or the domain-specific skills the students would get, but even basic employability skills like coming to office, how to dress, hygiene, basic communications, both verbal, more or less verbal, some IT foundations, and so on and so forth. Develop entrepreneurship skills. The fourth part, which is actually comes from the NVEQF framework, is recognition of prior learning. If you reflect back, most of the people who work in the skilled area, especially at the entry level, for example, if you look at a mechanic who does the air conditioner repair or your refrigeration repair, or who operates a lathe machine in the factory, most of the places they look at, we have a model of Guru Shishya, where the person who knows, he has another boy with him who would keep on observing, then start trying out few things, and over a period of 6, 12 or 24 months, start gaining all the skills, get transferred from the Guru to the Shishya. And that's how most of the people who do repair, maintenance, servicing, operation of basic machinery, or even in retail stores, which are malls, which are really coming up all over India in most of the larger and medium-sized cities, they hardly provide 6 to 12 hours of training. Most of the places, 6 to 12 or 24 hours of training, and then they are on the floor and they learn by observing and ongoing kind of a mentorship. So NVQF provides that many of these people who are not certified, whose skills are not certified, can get certified by recognition of prior learning which they've already gone through. So over a period of time, next probably 12 to 18 months, we would expect assessment centers to come up through sector skill councils, which are being promoted by National Skill Development Corporation, and also some schools and colleges or institutions or skill knowledge providers who would assess the skills which are already there in the people existing. They're picked up through practical learning or informal learning, and can get certified and can look forward to doing a higher level certification or even take admission into the college, community college or a training school to get the next level of certification. It provides for upward mobility in jobs and higher education. So students who go through skilled courses in community colleges, if some of them want to continue in the higher education system, in the vocational education stream, they would be able to do that. If some of them want to move into the general education scheme, the NVEQF framework provides for that. And of course, they may have to do some bridge courses. Similarly, students who are in the general academic stream in higher education can look at moving to the vocational stream by doing foundation courses and or bridge courses and moving to the vocational education. Those are conceptually, those things are specified in the executive order on NVEQF and which are feasible. Of course, the implementation framework and nuts and bolts are being worked out as the scheme is getting implemented at the ground level. So community colleges would also provide for lifelong learning, and as the name suggests, engage the community. So the focus would be really on providing employability skills which could be utilized in the neighborhood of, let's say, 40 to 50 kilometer radius of the place where the community college is located. And the local community could also participate through the industry, through the local politicians, through the local academics, etc., in the whole design and management of the community college. So it really connects the employers, the community, and the youth. That's the focus of the community colleges. And if you have any questions, you can keep on typing on the chat box. I have received one yes on NVEQF from till now. So maybe from Kamna Agrawal. So let me move ahead. Now this is just a simple schematic diagram to show you a basic structure of a community college as we have envisaged. And I would actually put in a little bit of what happens in the school level also in the vocational education under the NVEQF. And the NVEQF framework is actually, let me go to the NVEQF framework quickly to show, let me spend 5 minutes here and then I'll go back to that slide. So NVEQF organizes qualifications according to a series of level of knowledge along with skills. Levels define learning outcomes regardless of learning process. So there are 10 levels in the NVEQF framework, and there's a learning outcome and there's a learning process. Now learning process could be separate than the way we assess and measure the attainment of the outcomes needed at each level. Okay, so hence the recognition of prior learning which I was speaking fits in here. The person may have learned through any process but could go to an assessment center and get assessed at a certain level for a certain specific job role. The qualifications are made up of occupational standards for specific areas of learning units. So what is happening is that National Skill Development Corporation has envisaged setting up 30 different sector skill councils in different domains. For example, there are sector skill councils currently already working in the area of automobile, healthcare, capital goods, media and entertainment, IT, and so on and so forth. So 18 sector skill councils exist as of now. And one of the charters, key charters to sector skill councils is to create national occupational standards for different job roles within their domains. So let's say within the domain of job automobile, if there are 70 or 80 different job roles, the Sector Skill Council will identify the 70 or 80 job roles and create occupational standards which would specify what are the competencies which the person having a certain specific job role needs to have. And they're creating this NOSES or National Occupational Standards in partnership with their respective industry players, respective employers across the country. And that process has been on since August last year, and they have started coming out with NOS since last 1 month or so, and you can see some of these on the website of NSDC. So over a period of time, NOSES will become the primary thing which will drive the curriculum for the community colleges as well. It provides multiple pathways and recognition of prior learning, provides for multiple level entry and exit into the education system, and assessment and certification by awarding bodies with the involvement of industry and Sector Skill Council. So they would also be involved in assessment and certification process. So the 10 levels of NVQF are organized in the manner which you see on your screen, starting with level 1, which just to, while it does not have a direct correlation with grade 9 of a school, for example, a student who is in college could start working towards level 1 and then level 2, level 3. This is just to show equivalences in an ideal state, how would it be? Okay. So for the school education program, where government has introduced vocational education in some states, the level 1 program has been introduced in grade 9 and grade 11 currently, because grade 11 students have not gone through level 1 and 2 when they were in 9th and 10th standard. So when we introduce that in a school, so both grade 9 and grade 11 students go through level 1. In grade 11, they may do it a little faster. So there's level 1, 2, 3, 4. Typically, ideally, in an ideal state, students in the school system, when they finish their secondary school of 12 years of education, ideally can complete it. And 5 and 6 would be targeted towards the community colleges in due course. The 7 would be like a graduation level equivalency. So probably a person who does level 7 and completes both the skill component and the academic component, the general education component, could get a BVOC degree from the university, or an advanced diploma if it's a polytechnic, which is associated with the Board of Technical Education. And 8th and 9th level are kind of pegged at the master's level program. Let's say there's no master's degree right now in answer of vocational education, but I presume it will happen in due course. And so this is more of a pegging of from our, because we can relate to the existing structure of education. So this is how the NVQF framework is in across 10 levels. So I'll go back to that slide which I was showing you. So ideally in high school level from 9 to 12, the students would do level 1 to level 4, which will be about 200 to 300 hours of content per year, vocational content, apart from the general education component which they do. So this is what the students have been doing in Haryana. 40 of the schools in Haryana which was the first one to implement last year the NVQF framework in their school system. And now this year some more states are adding on to that. The community colleges would look at year 1 and year 2 of a full degree program, and typical 1 year studies has about 900 to 1000 hours of learning, and that's a kind of a benchmark. Between 800 to 1000 hours of learning happens in 1 year of college studies. So let's say if you are talking about year 1 of a community college, there would be about 400 500 hours of vocational education, and about 400 500 hours of general education in the community college for those students, and they would get assessed separately for the skills component and the general education component, and similarly in year 2, and they could exit at any point after year 1 or even after semester 1. For example, after 6 months they could exit, accumulate those credits, come back later, start working, come back later, and go in for the next level of under the NVQF. So that's what is, so there's no rigidity. Right now if a student joins the BA program, and let's assume after year 2 there's some mishap which happens and the student cannot continue, he or she does not get any recognition for the work for the 2 years of BA studies, because the student either finishes a 3-year program or doesn't finish it. There's nothing midway right now. So it provides those flexibilities to the student. So that's how the whole community college thing is broadly in ideal state structured. So some of the features of the courses which would be run in the community colleges, they would be relevant to the learner in the local community in terms of industry, employability. It could even be traditional trades. So for example, in Aligarh, the lock making and industry, students, some of the schools or colleges could offer courses which really look into the traditional arts as well. Modular and credit based, banking of credit with multiple exit and entry, which we spoke a little while ago. Curriculum to be developed in consultation with industry employees. That's one of the key things where our current academic system doesn't really, in general, I mean, there could be some exceptions, but in general, it does not work with industry or employers. Neither do industry or employers work with academic institutions. It's really both ways. Things have really not worked out over the last, 30, 40, 50 years. And they remain isolated, whereas the output of the academic institutions go into the industry. So if we can put in their requirements into the curriculum design itself, that's what, so each of the community colleges would essentially have to work with the industry and employers to design, while designing the curriculum. A mix of knowledge and skill, which I spoke about. So there's a general education component and the skill component, which would be part of the curriculum and courses, so that the students get holistic learning over there. The general education component would typically conform to the university standards if it's level 5 and 6. If it's level 1 to 4, it will conform to the school standards, and the skills will conform to the NVQF standards of vocational education. And certification would be dependent on acquisition of credits, not on duration. I mean, that's an ideal state. Maybe we'll reach it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. And actually, the credits are also normally worldwide derived out of the duration of learning. That's how in US, UK, Australia, Germany, the credits are derived typically a 14-hour. If it's a semester system, then 14 hours of face-to-face learning means 1 credit point. That's a typical 14 to 15 hours of learning would mean 1 credit point if it's a face-to-face learning. And if it's practical learning where the main instructor is not present, then it could be probably half a credit for 14 hours of practical workshop work. But in due course, we expect that duration should not be a measure. Once we have the credits defined for a course, the students could acquire it faster or in a slower track. Skills to be imparted in face-to-face mode. The practical aspect, the workshop, the labs would be definitely be imparted in face-to-face mode. So whether it's the IGNOU, which will, if there's run community colleges, the skill and practical component would have to be imparted in face-to-face mode. So they would have to make provisions for that. And similarly, at the school level, if the National Institute of Open Schooling has to do it. In fact, I was in a conference last week, workshop of NIOS for 2 days, where they called in about 25 people from all over the country who know vocational education and open schooling and distance learning, to really see how do they bring in the whole NVQF framework into open schooling, while keeping to the ensuring that they meet the basic concepts of NVQF and the face-to-face practical learning to the students of open schools as well. So those are the key features of the courses that should be run in community colleges. Similarly, if you focus on the features of the colleges, they would typically be located in the vicinity of industry, 30, 40, 50 kilometer. Idea is that students should be able to get, larger number should be able to get employment either within the city itself or within the state, without having to really move out or immigrate wherever possible. Some places it may not be possible. And we know that especially the northeastern states. In Himachal Pradesh, there is more of tourism, agriculture, horticulture, sericulture oriented courses. So probably that's what their community colleges would offer more, along with the healthcare. Healthcare is something which is needed across the country. I mean, without any kind of but the needs of the healthcare may be different in hilly areas versus plain areas. So that kind of curriculum flexibility would be there when they design the courses. Strong linkage with community and industry or employer. So colleges would have linkages by participating in, industry would participate in the board of management of the community colleges, in the board of studies for defining the curriculum. Community colleges would have a fair degree of autonomy for design, development and modifying the curriculum and the delivery, while AICTE has defined curriculum for certain job roles in 12 domains. The colleges can either pick that up and make adequate modifications to suit their local requirements, or colleges can design and develop the curriculum in accordance with the national occupational standards being made by sector skill councils, take them as the guidelines and then contextualize that in the local industry context. And of course the curriculum content, they would get it accredited with the respective university or board of technical education to which they are affiliated to. Adequate physical infrastructure in terms of labs and workshops, trained core faculty within the college, supported by part-time faculty from industry, from working professionals, and that's another place where industry would have to work closely. Similarly, for giving practical training, some of the equipment may be possible to keep in the community college, but there would be some more equipment which probably each community college may not be able to afford. So the industry partner would work with the community college, or the community college will work with the industry partner to provide training at the workplace itself on those kind of equipment to whatever extent it's possible during the learning process. Robust and credible system of evaluation jointly with the sector skill councils and university system or technical board along with the sector skill council. And preference to admission to the local community. So since it's meant primarily, wherever feasible, for the local residents to get employed in the local industry, preference for admission would be given by the colleges to the local population and local youth, so that they become catalysts for the economic growth in whatever locality, the city, the district or the state they are in. Now, this does not mean that these colleges are exclusively for the local state. We do expect in due course some of the students, some of the colleges would start focusing on even training more students who could also look at moving out to other parts of the world, because we do have skilled manpower going in large numbers, or semi-skilled manpower actually one would say, going in large numbers to Middle East, to Australia and many other parts of the world. And we would like that to continue and provide them more skilled manpower. So the incentives to community colleges is at these 200 colleges which are being set up would be funded almost 100% by the government, 90% by central and 10% by state governments. And initially these would be all in the government sector. And what I expect is that over a period of time, once these colleges take off, the courses would be accredited by the respective university or the state technical education board. It will get incorporated into the scheme of studies of these degree awarding or diploma awarding institutions like in universities and state technical boards. And then probably 6 to 12 months down the line, many of the private institutions could also start running it, riding on that incorporation in the scheme of studies by the universities or boards, and start of this. And that's what we expect in Haryana. When we started with the Haryana government, started the NVEQ program within the school system. Over the last 8-9 months, it has got integrated in this board scheme of studies of the Haryana School Education Board. And this year, any private institution can also launch those courses. Of course, they may not get funding. They have different kind of incentives from the government. So easy fee structure, which would be decided by the community colleges in discussion with the state government, because each state has their own fee structures in the education, and education is a concurrent subject. So MHRD didn't want to specify anything from the central government side. So each of the state governments along with the community colleges would decide the fee structure, So that's another aspect of flexibility. And even if they want to provide it free of cost, MHRD is going to give scholarships to the learners and fund the community colleges for that, for the initial period, to encourage them to come in for vocational education. And wherever possible, if the state governments and the community colleges want to tie up in a private-public partnership mode with industry, with other community colleges outside India, they can go ahead and do that. The scheme provides for that partnership. So the state, each of the states have appointed a nodal officer, which is typically of the level of either a secretary or a special secretary or a senior director, who is coordinating this work at the state level and with MHRD. So they prepare the budget and funding requirements, the development of curriculum, training of teachers, transaction of curriculum in the community colleges, teaching, evaluation, certification, through the processes which or stakeholders which I mentioned earlier, placement, planning, review of the whole program. The selection and governance of community colleges would be done, has been done by the state governments, and most of the state governments have done that. And they would be, to start off, would be hosted in the existing colleges or polytechnics or university departments or central universities, the 40 central universities or 45 central universities which are present across the country. Because we didn't want these colleges to get bogged down by and get delayed, because then if one has to open fresh colleges, it needs land, buildings, civil infrastructure, and so on and so forth, which should take a much longer time. However, in due course, many of the states or private sector could start off the community colleges independently as well. I mean, it's not that they have to be hosted within the existing colleges. And even, I mean, probably 5 to 7 years down the line, I can see some of the existing colleges may like to just convert themselves fully into community colleges and transform them into community colleges rather than offering BA, BSc, BCom degrees. They may start offering courses under BVOC, Bachelor's of Vocational Studies, to the students in case there's a local requirement for doing that. And each of the states have been given a certain quota of community colleges which they can start and which would be funded by MHRD. This was communicated to them last year, about a year ago, by MHRD, and that's how the whole thing is working out. And this was decided based on a very democratic process of proportion of states' population, and divided by, so 200 were distributed across based on the population, with little more preference to the hilly states and the northeastern states and the hilly states. The governance structure of the community colleges, they would have a board of management and a board of studies, and these would essentially have industry representation and some local influential people as well, who could really help in getting these community colleges off the board and run successfully. It could be an existing or a new BOM and BOS. Existing board of management could also be transformed to handle both the college and the community college. And the benefit which I see from there is, over a period of time, probably they may start looking at offering some more courses, even in the general streams of BA, BSc, BCom, or transform the curriculum of the existing courses, maybe even in history, for example, into something which is employability oriented. For example, colleges in the BA curriculum can offer a course in history, which could be on tourism for historical monuments in their state, which is clearly linked to the history course which they are doing in BA, which is employability oriented, and students could get employment after that, and we could have a lot of practical components. So those are some of the things which we expect over a period of time. The movement would take shape of whole vocational education beyond the pure community colleges as well. And if it's the same board of management, probably they would drive, they could drive this over a period of time, would realize the need of it, and would influence the curriculum making bodies like universities to define that. Industry representation a must. BOS to have affiliating body representation as well, if it's automotive or if it's retail sector, if it's healthcare, if it's banking, or if it's capital goods, if it's manufacturing, oil and petroleum, or whichever industry one is talking about, fashion industry, media and entertainment, or IT. They would operate in identified buildings and premises of existing colleges. They could also use industry sites for some of the practical aspects or even theoretical aspects. That's something which is between the industry and the community college. And the skill knowledge providers, some of them are being identified by the government through AICTE has launched a scheme for skill knowledge providers in the private sector. So they could also be used by the community colleges. Scheme does not provide for funding for premises, the civil infrastructure or land. They need to have adequate lab workshop facilities. Either they already have some part of it, or they tie up with the industry partner, or it could be funded by the government as well, or it could be a mixture of all these three. Scheme will fund the procurement of equipment wherever necessary. So the faculty would have a permanent core for general education component, and maybe 1 or 2 core people for the vocational component, and a pool of guest faculty from industry or open market for imparting skills, so that we are not restricted in community colleges to looking at people who have a PhD degree or a B.Ed, who may not have requisite industrial experience. So for example, in an automotive industry, if you are training some person for a 4-wheeler repair, let's say truck repair, truck engine repair or truck repair, it's possible to even take a person who is just class 5 but who knows, who can repair an engine much better. So students would learn the theory part from people who are from probably an engineering expert who understands the engine design and so on and so forth. But the actual practical way of opening the engine, identifying, diagnosing problems, probably a person with a 5th or 10th standard, but who's really an expert in that area, working in Tata Motors or Mahindra or Ashok Leyland or some local workshop, could also be a guest faculty. There's no bar for doing that. And Board of Management would approve the plan for the full faculty, Board of Management of the same college. The faculty training, community colleges will prepare the plan. There are institutions like, there are 4 central institutions like NITR, National Institute of Technical Teacher Training in Chennai, Chandigarh, Kolkata and Bhopal, PSSCIB, which is Central Institute for Vocational Education, Bhopal, or other vocational institutes within the states, etc., or some larger polytechnics in the states could become resource centers. So the state governments along with the community colleges and maybe MHRD would constantly work upon doing that. The admission, I have discussed preference to the learners living in local community. The government reservation policies would be applicable as per the state's policies. Now, another difference which is being made here is the community colleges will not run on an annual academic calendar. What MHRD has suggested and recommended is that they do admission at least twice a year, if not 4 times a year. Because industry also needs people not just in April or May, but they need people, trained people, skilled people across the year. So so the admissions could be based on the local requirements. It could be twice a year, thrice a year, 4 times a year. That's something that the community colleges would decide their admission cycles. And re-entry students who have got certain level of attainment under NVQF, if they want to come back to the college to study, they would get typically a preference. And again, the community colleges are not limited to work only during daytime. We expect some of the community colleges in due time to even launch courses in the evening. May not be this year, maybe from next year, so that the people who are already employed in the industry could come back and do those courses in the evening with the college. The fee policy, they decide in consultation with the state government. They would take into account their local issues of undergraduate courses and the way the government takes fees, charges fees in the government institutions, polytechnics and colleges. Attempt to recover part of the operating expenditure. In due course, probably 5 years, 6 years down the line, one would expect the colleges to start becoming as much as possible self-sustaining, but that's not a part of the scheme right now. The attempt is to recover part of the operating expenditure. Idea is to get more skilled people, while government is giving incentives to learners in terms of scholarships and so on and so forth to come and study here. Scholarships at the rate of 1,000 rupees per month to the students enrolled and studying in the community colleges from MHRD to the state government is envisaged in the scheme. So the funding elements are provision of faculty, both full-time and part-time, salary and training and development, development of curriculum, lab workshop facilities, consumables, scholarships to learners. So it's primarily around operating expenditure, and capital expenditure only for equipment in the lab and workshops. But the buildings and land would not be a part of the funding scheme. Collaboration with industry in development of labs and faculty provision. States may evolve PPP for funding. Center state would bear this in 90-10 ratio, the funding. The way this is that state will submit to MHRD the proposal. There is a specific format which has been made by MHRD. This had been sent to the state governments in February or so of this year, and MHRD has received proposals from about 160 colleges / polytechnics from large number of states. Already they are being scrutinized by UGC and AICTE, because the funds would be released, the central government share would be released to the proposed colleges through either UGC if they are under the university and college system, or if they are polytechnics, then through AICTE, the respective governing bodies at the central level. And there's a evaluation committee which is being set up by UGC and AICTE respectively. And they would have the normal monitoring evaluation processes. They're setting up their own NVQ cells within these institutions at the central level. The key beneficiaries and what's the impact and possible role of the industry. So I firmly believe, and MHRD also very firmly believes, that the key beneficiaries are going to be the youth, and of course the end user would be the industry. Yes, the community, the family gains in the whole process, but if you have to identify two people, one person, then I would say industry. If it's two stakeholders, then the youth and the industry. And one of the reasons for success of community colleges or the failure would be the extent of participation and partnership between the respective community college and industry, and to that extent this role which CII, trade associations like CII have taken on through these webinars and other forums is something which is really welcome. And let me just tell you that academia, with whatever my interaction and learning has been, and very close interaction over the last 1 year, is very uncomfortable talking to industry, because they have never done so. Okay, most of them have never spoken to industry, so they tend to feel a lack of confidence in talking to industry, and industry also would feel that academia doesn't listen to us. And I think this wall between academia and industry has to be chipped as early as possible, both by academia moving towards shaking hands with the industry, and industry also going out of its way to shake hands with the academia. And specifically these 200 proposed community colleges. So the role the industry can play is being a partner in curriculum design, be a part of board of management or studies, provide guest faculty, help in course delivery wherever feasible, access to your facilities for practical work and internship, assist in evaluation, recruit the successful students who graduate out of, when it's a graduate, level 1, level 2, level 4, 5, 6, whatever level they graduate with, and as per your requirements and the kind of job roles you provide. Now, what the MHRD has suggested, I missed putting that down in the slides here, is that MHRD wants each of the community proposed colleges to start with only 2 courses in year 1, because there is going to be a steep learning curve for the colleges, for the industry, for the government system, the policy implementers in the states, and even for the policy makers in central government. So MHRD does not want the colleges to start offering 10 courses, 15 courses right from the word go, but start with either 1 or 2 courses in 1 or 2 sectors with 1 or 2 job roles only, and do it well, in close partnership with industry, and then based on the learning which happens, look at working out the next year's plans and add maybe another job role, another domain, and gradually kind of up the scale. We have been living with the way we have been living for last 60 years. So it doesn't matter if it takes 1 or 2 more years to really start scaling the whole process up. But it's really important that the initial part gets done properly rather than taking up too much on their plate. So this is some of the key role which industry could play, and how to partner. Contact the designated nodal officer for the respective state. Now, in case you are interested to know who the nodal officer is, you can also write across to me, either through Subhash Sapru in CII, or you can write directly across to me. I'll give you my email ID. I haven't put on the slide, but if you want to note it down, I can give you my email ID right now. It's ajay.goel, ajay.goel at Wadhwani, WADHWANI hyphen foundation, FOUNDATION.org. I'll repeat, ajay.goel at Wadhwani hyphen foundation.org, WADHWANI hyphen FOUNDATION.org. Or you could reach me through CIA through Subhash Sapru as well, and I would be glad to provide you the details of the nodal officer in your respective states, which you can contact them. Colleges and polytechnics have been identified by most states. So after you speak to the nodal officer, you could identify the college or polytechnic as an employer you would like to partner with, and partner with one college to start off with, 1 or 2 colleges, and make it a success jointly working with them. Because ultimately the industry you are going to benefit in the longer run by getting skilled manpower. So your productivity would increase, the learning curve of the people you recruit currently, that would shorten. You would have to put lesser effort, much lesser time to train people when they join you, as compared to what's happening today. So it's really a win-win for the industry, the student, as well as for the academic and education system. And that's what I wanted to talk about. And you're welcome to ask me questions at this